and good evening. I'm Melisa Idris. Welcome to Consider This. This is the show where we want you to consider and then reconsider what you know of the news of the day. Now tonight we turn our attention to Malaysia's ambitious plans to become a regional leader in drone technology. Now as the sector grows, so does the challenge of regulation, ensuring the safety and security of our airspace without stifling innovation in drone technology. So joining us to discuss this further, we have Datuk Captain Norazman Mahmud, who is the CEO of the Civil Aviation Authority of Malaysia. So Captain Norazman, thank you for being on the show here with me. I want to begin maybe with kind of a broad overview of the current landscape and the framework governing drone use in Malaysia, which CAAM is responsible for overseeing. So maybe we can begin there.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Melisa, for inviting CAAM to actually share what is the current landscape and the current activities that a lot of people are questioning or wonder what drone can do. I think it's no secret, we also published last year that there are about 130,000 drones registered in Malaysia. The drone regulation is actually covered through Civil Aviation Regulation of Malaysia 2016, and of course it's very broad in terms of regulation, but we actually defined it in our Civil Aviation Directive. So basically to the public, we are actually responsible and accountable in maintaining the safety and security of the airspace. So anytime you think of flying a drone, you need permission because we want to know where you want to fly, why you want to fly, for what reason, because we need to control the area.
Right.
We don't want you to go near the airport and also over a populated area just in case something happened and the drone hit people.
So let's talk about the types of drones. So 130,000 registered drones. And those are the ones that are registered, right? I'm sure there are thousands more which are unregistered. And talk to me about the uses of them, because there are both recreational use drones and there are commercial use drones. They're characterized according to weight?
First of all, weight and of course their area of operations as well. So drone also can be categorized as low risk, high risk, and whatnot. Some are medium, some are high, some are low. But I would say in the current landscape, 80% is more on the recreational drone, where they are very light, below 250 grams of weight. But the rest you can categorize as more for commercial use, industrial use, you know, for agriculture, building inspections, cargo carrying, a lot of applications basically if we talk about drone. Some drones can even carry up to 500 kilograms of weight to transfer cargo. So,
all right. So I want to talk about industries that have adapted for drone use. But let's focus quickly on the recreational, since 80% of drones currently are used for recreational purposes. How are they used recreationally? I think of, because we're in the media space, I think of camera drones. But how else is it being used?
Normally for recreational, they're taking for, you know, documentaries, things like that.
So it's usually kind of camera, aerial shots.
aerial shots. And we need to know where this activity is taking place because we have to ensure they didn't encroach the airport areas especially, and also there are restricted and prohibited areas. For example, near a prison, near armed forces bases, you can't fly drone within this area because they are protected under the restricted space.
Do you think the public is aware of which areas are no-fly zone areas?
No, I don't think so.
I have no clue.
Yeah, because it's not published basically.
It's not published.
Except for the airports. The airport is published, but some of these places are what we call it government interests that the government need to protect. You know, a big infrastructure like oil refineries, you know, things like that. So imagine if a drone crashed into an oil refineries, so it can cause catastrophic damage.
Right.
So hence we need to know where you are flying. So in the process of giving that approval for flying, we need to check with other ministries as well. In this case is CGSO, Chief Government Office,
right? Okay.
Where they control all this restricted airspace.
So under CAAM, there is the Unmanned Aircraft System Traffic Management System. That is essentially the framework that will govern drone use. And what that means is that whoever buys a drone will need to register with CAAM.
Correct.
And then if you want to use the drone, you need to seek a permit for use.
Correct.
How then do you ensure that drone operators are aware where they can go, where they can't go? Is it easier to restrict them where they can go, or is it better to just tell them where they can't go?
That's why the information is restricted, because you want to protect the place.
Okay.
Right? It cannot be a public knowledge, but when we use the UASTM, inside the system, there are all the stakeholders that's actually part of giving the permit to fly.
Okay.
For example, that we need to assure that the drone is safe, a certified drone. So it must go through CAAM. So CAAM is also in that system. So places to fly, certain place you can't fly. So CGSO is also part of the system. So every stakeholders, every agencies is in the UASTM system. So they just go to one place instead of going all over the ministries and getting approval. All they have to do is go to the apps, they register first, and I want to fly. If, let's say, for instance, the area is protected, it will be rejected.
Okay, so it's an app application. So to apply for a permit is through the app.
That's where we're moving to, because you know the size of you can't basically do it manually because of thousands and thousands of applications.
So I can imagine. How do we think about the challenges of regulating this industry? It's so new. It's an evolving technology, one that changes so rapidly from year to year. So you've got regulations at the start of the year that may be obsolete at the end of the year.
Yes.
Talk to me about how you are thinking of approaching regulation as CAAM to the drone industry.
Okay, how regulation is published or enforced, we basically don't do it on our own. We refer to ICAO, International Civil Aviation Organizations. They will produce what we call SAP, Standard and Recommended Practice, where we can actually adopt to become a national regulation. So we are actually working very closely. We are in the working group with ICAO and also regions around our countries, because we share the same demographic, geographical conditions. So we are in there, and the regulation is basically reviewed yearly. Or if ICAO publish something new, then we have to adopt and put it into a regulation. And of course, like you say, whether the people know or doesn't know this regulation, that is what we call this regulation is not just honest. I mean, it's everybody's responsibility, right? So our job, the challenges is basically to make the regulation clear, readily available. We guide them through promotions, through engagement, a lot of things that we can do to actually make the public aware how to operate this drone safely.
Okay, so you're going off ICAO guidelines. So we are on par with international best practices?
We have to.
Okay, all right. So when you are coming up with guidelines that are specific for Malaysia, what are the key considerations that go into creating those regulations? You talked a little bit about the safety of the airspace, kind of national security, but get into, if you can elaborate some of the thinking behind the considerations that go into it.
Okay, why we call it standard and recommended practice in ICAO, we call it standard and recommended practice. And this SAP is normally adopted to become a regulations. That means before we actually, ICAO or us, publish the certain regulation, it must be acceptable to the industry and the stakeholders as well. We don't simply put a regulations when nobody can follow.
You'll stifle the industry, right?
Yes, correct. So the engagement with the industry, for example, before we publish any of the regulation, we publish what we call MPRM, or Notice of Proposed Rulemaking. That is a very standard process all the CAA goes through. Let's say I want to implement some regulation, we publish this MPRM, Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, so that the stakeholders, the industry can give a feedback. What are the challenges if this is enforced? What can we adapt to actually adapt to our localization, all these things. So the input we also take from the industry as well. It's not simply just take whatever IQ says up, okay, this is it. So we have to publish what we call MPRM to the public, so that they can comment, what is it suitable for them, things like that.
Can you give me an example of the types of feedback that you have taken into account from the public and from stakeholders that have allowed you to tweak your regulations to fit?
Okay, I can't remember offhand, but because Malaysian regulation is unique in the way there are a lot of agencies.
Okay, so you have many stakeholders. Many stakeholders,
agencies especially, that actually are responsible in their own areas. For example, like I said, CAAM or CGSO, they need to protect. So when we adopt the sub can just simply say, this needs a certain regulation, standard and recommended practice. But we have to engage with all these regulations. Is this doable? For example, do you want to actually restrict people from flying this type of route? So we need the feedback from all the ministries. For example, it is very crucial for us to fly during emergency. For instance, when the road is blocked, when you need to send some medication. So yes, according to the law, that you need a permission, but time is an essence. So we have to work together with all the agencies in this kind of situation. Most probably the regulation is not applicable, but we restrict only these few people that we pre-approve, for instance, like bomber, Jabatan Kesihatan.
Yes, I mean drone technology was used during natural disasters, the
landslides
that we've seen.
So they cannot afford to go to that normal process, long process. So we sort of like pre-approve because we know who's flying, which area they're gonna fly, what type of drones they're gonna fly. We already know that, so we adapt that kind of regulation, so that if anything happens, instantly they can be dispatched.
Okay, so there is kind of an emergency
something
SOP.
like that. Normally in emergencies, there are a lot of things that you can prepare. Emergency, you can prepare, and then we learn a lot through accidents, incidents, and emergencies. So we have to devise some sort of plan, like pre-approve all these things.
So the regulations are strict for a reason, right?
Yeah.
But what do you hear from industry players and recreational drone users or drone operators who may find these too stringent? What is the feedback? What is the consultation process? What are you hearing?
The most common one is they have to go to all these agencies to get approval. So that is why USTM is basically a one-stop center. You have a drone, you register through the app, you only have one app. And all the things that they need to go in the first place is all there. So hopefully when we actually enforce the USTM, we introduce to the public, general public, this thing will pick up and the process of approval will be instantaneous in certain type of operations. For example, I give you want to take a wedding picture tomorrow.
Okay.
Right. A wedding. So you just say, no, you're already registered. We know who you are. We know what kind of drone you're operating. And then you just tell us where is the area. If the area is not a restricted area, you get instant approval. That's it.
So that's the benefit of registering your drone.
Correct.
So for all the thousands of people who don't have a registered drone, the benefit is once the USTM system kicks into is enforced, you'll be able to do this far quicker.
Far quicker. At this moment, it's 14 days.
At the moment, it's 14 days. What's the vision? How quickly do you want it to be?
Instantaneous. For this kind of that's why you have to sort of categorize which type of operations. If you want to send cargo, it cannot be instantaneous. We have to know what type of cargo you carry, what type of drones, all these things.
Okay, well let's pivot that the conversation then to the commercial use, the industry. Industries that have adopted, drone adopted industries. You mentioned agriculture a little bit earlier and cargo. So these are kind of the ones that when we think about, okay, these are the most obvious industries that will benefit from drone use. But where else? Where do you see the opportunities of industries adopting drone use?
Okay, besides cargo, surveillance is actually a very broad area. I give an example, like we have enforcement agencies like APMM, the Navies, the Air Force, where they need to do a surveillance over vast areas. Using helicopters is too expensive. Using aeroplane is too expensive. And drones are actually capable of doing this now. So some of it, we work through what we call a special UAS project. So it is just this type of operations, the certified people who can do it, the certified drones that can do it. So we give the approval. Of course, it will be through a risk-based approach. That means you have to think of all sort of situations that can be risky, and then you actually tackle that risk, and then we give that approval. Because, for instance, the pipeline in Malaysia, just Semenanjung, you have any idea how long is our pipeline in Semenanjung?
No.
1,900 kilometers.
Which all needs to be monitored.
And so we kind of approve some of the project by Petronas where they need to monitor a certain area of their pipeline where it is very difficult to assess, too costly to send the helicopters. So what we call a nested approach, where they put a drone in that particular area, that's why it's called nested, right? In a nest. So whenever they detect something, a vibration or something that encroach into their pipeline, the drone will go and have a look. And they have like what you call a mission control area where they can see immediately what's going on around that area, if they need to dispatch people, all these things. So cost is much less rather than sending helicopters.
Right.
So
and you can cover a lot of ground.
Cover a lot of ground. So this type of operations are specific in terms of drone use. So we have to go through all the process, what we call it special US project.
Right. How commonplace are drone deliveries? I mean, you talked about cargo a little bit earlier. I remember a conversation by kind of Amazon 10 years ago, if I'm not mistaken, talking about how parcels will be delivered by drones.
Yes.
Is that something in the near future for Malaysia?
Of course, yes. There are some proposals that actually come to CAAM in terms of delivery. But then again, we have to work with other agencies as well, because you tell me you are going to deliver burgers, for instance. But what if it's not burgers inside there? So somebody else, like the police, the customs, are interested in doing this. So we need to actually look in the big picture, not just, take it 100%. Okay, you're going to send burgers. For all you know, the next day you're sending something else which is illegal, which is under the jurisdiction of PDRM or under jurisdiction of custom.
But why would it be different for aerial deliveries than any other deliveries land-based, for instance? I mean, that we could say the same for any parcel being delivered.
That's why I said it's all based on risk-based. If you can actually tackle all the risks and get approval in various agencies that actually are interested in what you are actually doing in terms of delivery, it can be done. So we have to sit down together and work and tackle all this based on the risk base.
Okay. So what is the vision for Malaysia when it comes to the drone industry? We have an action plan, the Malaysia Drone Technology Action Plan, up to 2030.
Yes.
I've also read and heard of remarks from the minister talking about, the Muslim minister talking about making Malaysia a drone technology hub.
So I think you have heard about MTDAP, where they forecast this drone industry by 2030. It will actually contribute about 30 billion to the GDP, right? So some of the things that we have done is actually we created what we call a sandbox approval, meaning you can do based on proof of concept. but we provide you a safe place for you to do it. Proof of concept, meaning we in KL is what we call Area 51. In the south, we call it, I can't remember the name actually.
Area 51 is a unique name to have.
Yeah. But basically, that's the place where we can think that you can do a lot of proof of concept thingy without jeopardizing the safety of the public and also the current airspace user. Because this is the area where you can actually prove what you say. Let's say if you want to do a surveillance or you want to do a delivery, this is where you can practice, you can tackle all the risks that identified and mitigated it accordingly, put it in a proper plan so that we can see if this thing happened, this is what you do. This thing happened, this is what you do. And then you actually prove that you can do it.
Right.
Okay.
So you're creating sandboxes, safe spaces for industry to test out whether or not their hypotheses or their premises work. Talk to me about where you see the biggest opportunities are, just in terms of building capacity and capability, right? I see so many drone training schools and academies advertising online.
Correct.
How do you balance the need for building capacity of people who are drone ready, drone literate?
Okay.
What is CAAM's role in it?
Okay. When we started the regulating what we call RPTO, Remote Pilot Training Organizations, right? It received a tremendous support from the public, meaning within a short period of time, we have thousands and thousands of certified drone pilots. So at least we are comforted that these people are, certified to fly drones, not just because they learn from YouTube or experience, but it's actually certified, and then they have that, safety conscious, safety culture. They have that because part of the syllabus, we actually introduce a safety culture. If it's normally that you fly a drone of 250 grams, let's say tomorrow you're going to fly a drone which weighs 2 kilos, it will trigger them, hey, this is different than what I normally do. So this is the extra step that I need to take to ensure safety. So these are, we put this inside the syllabus so that they have that safety culture in operating drones. So hopefully a lot more people can be trained properly. It's same like pilot. Pilots needs to be trained, right? So same thing. And then the general public thinks that the drone are, the small drone. We have drones, like I told you.
Big drones,
Big drones, like the size of a helicopter. Imagine if you don't certify and you don't tackle all the risks, by these big drones.
Right.
The small one, that's it, 80%, they're okay, they are recreational, very, very low risk. But the one that's higher risk as agriculture drone, where they carry fertilizers, this all needs to be, you have to train how to use it. Right?
Yeah, fascinating case. So in the couple minutes that we have left, can I ask you where you see the, what kind of changes we can expect over the next, 5, 10 years, or maybe that's even too long for drone technology, maybe in the next few years. How do you see that changing to adapt to how quickly technology changes?
The first thing, of course, UASTM needs to be executed. So
when
that
is it
UASTM.
When is it expected to
It's
come
supposed
online?
to be this year. So we are going to tender it out this year, so operational by next year. That's the first one, because now it's available to all the public and making the permissions to fly seamless. That's number one. And of course, we need more training school, I said, building capacities, right? The awareness of you need to learn to fly this thing. Yeah, the awareness. And of course, drone technology is actually moving very, very fast. It's amazing that drones can do a lot of things that you cannot think of last time, right? They can even paint a building now. So yeah, so this thing we cannot stop but innovations. So on our part as a regulator, we have to keep abreast of this technology, right? And of course support the innovation without jeopardizing the safety, the public, all this thing. So we are always open for people that want to do something new, come and talk to us. so we can sit down and look at all aspects of risk and then give approval accordingly lah. You know.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for shedding light into such an interesting industry. Appreciate your time.
It's too short to talk about
it is.
all
we
the
must
regulation.
have you back some more to talk about the drone industry some more. Thank you for your time, Captain.
Thank you for having me.
That's all we have for you on this episode of Consider This. I'm Melisa Idris signing off for the evening. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.